point about the way that we will conduct ourselves during the next 90 minutes or so.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining us today. During the presentation portion, we will keep attendees on mute, but after that, we will unmute everyone, and during that, we'll have an open discussion. If you have any questions during that period, you can either use the public chat feature on the right side of your screen or the Q&A feature to submit a question. If you're dialed in only on the phone, you can email Jessica Schwartzman at familyplanning2020.org any questions, whether they be technical issues or content-related questions that you would like addressed during the Q&A. Again, her email is jschwartzmann@familyplanning2020.org. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you very much, Rati. So again, thank you everyone for joining. We see this as a real opportunity for GFF countries and for the FP2020 movement more generally to understand the global financing facility in detail, and we do sincerely appreciate the World Bank's partnership in this effort. In addition to the GFF Secretariat's participation within the World Bank, I understand there are also invitations for task team leaders at the country level, and that partnership at the country level we think is absolutely crucial. Forging of that partnership between FP2020 focal points and colleagues from within the World Bank and governments to in the 12 countries with the most up-to-date information on the GFF.
Hi.
Secondly,
sorry, you all got muted for about a minute, so just wanted to let you know that you just came on again. Thank you.
Hi, Rama. This is Monique. I'm on the line.
Great, Monique.
Thank you. Thank you, Rama. Did that mean that I got muted and no one could hear what I was saying?
Yes, that's correct. People were typing saying they couldn't hear you.
All right. Well, thanks, Rama. Can you let me know the last words you heard me utter before I went?
You just welcomed all of us.
I was talking for ages. Don't you just hate it when that happens? All right, no problem. So again, just 5 main areas that we're looking at in terms of the purpose of this webinar. Firstly, and most obviously, to provide the FP2020 focal points primarily in the GFF countries, the 12 countries, with the most up-to-date information possible on the global financing facility. Secondly, to support those focal points with relevant tools, obviously beyond the government commitments and costed implementation plans, moving into thinking about analytics to productively and proactively identify opportunities to really justify the inclusion of family planning in the GFF investment cases. Thirdly, and interactively, a Q&A with the World Bank on the process, and with FP technical experts on the programmatic elements that lie therein. Fourthly, to increase information sharing around lessons learned to date regarding this new financing mechanism for RMN-CAH. What is and isn't working for family planning in this context, and how can we more productively capitalize on resources available through the GFF. And fifthly, and indeed as importantly, to start an ongoing dialogue with focal points on the GFF and offer resources that might be available to support investment case development going forward. And so in relation to those 5 points, we have a packed agenda in front of us that we do hope to get through in the next 80-85 minutes. We have a series of presentations, and we do really ask you to think about your questions, and we want you to engage in a dynamic conversation and learn from all of you about the ways you are interacting with the GFF, what has worked for you in your country, and where you're facing challenges. There'll be time for a Q&A with the World Bank's GFF Secretariat and discussion around general topics that seem to be generating the most interest from within our community, including, crucially, civil society participation, of course. And so, just quickly, we'll move in a moment to our colleague Rama from the World Bank, who'll provide an overview of the GFF for about 15 minutes. And if I could just remind you to mute your lines when you're while we're in this section, that would be very helpful indeed. Thank you. Secondly, on our agenda, we have Anne Starberg with us from USAID. 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 17 reasons to invest in family planning. Thirdly, we'll hear from Monica Kerrigan on the GFF as an opportunity and tools to capitalise on the new RMN-CAH financing mechanism. And then the fourth section will move into reflections from certain countries. We have representatives on the line from front-runner countries as well as second-wave countries, and we hope to engage in some interactive views from those countries on their experience so far. And then, as I've said, in the sort of fifth and sixth elements of this morning's agenda, we'll move through a moderated question and answer session, and then a more interactive discussion among the focal point representatives. And again, if I could ask if colleagues could mute their lines at this stage, I'm struggling to make myself heard over the feedback.
Hello? Hello?
We just deliberately muted ourselves. Doesn't seem to have been a success. I'm back on now. I presume you can all hear me. So, as I said, we're going to move into this crucial first element of the presentations, and I'd like to ask our colleague Rama Lakshminarayanan from the World Bank, who's very kindly agreed to give us 15 minutes on the most up-to-date information as far as our focal points are concerned with regard to the GFF at this stage. So, and again, and thank you very much all of those who've muted your lines where there's background noise. I do hope, Rama, you can hear me and that we can move through the next section now.
Rama, can you hear us?
Great, thank you, Rama. And
we're unable to hear you. Ellen, are you able to hear us? Excuse us, everyone, for the technical difficulties.
Thanks, everyone, for your patience. We're just getting Rama online. I'd just like to assure you all that we tested this extensively over the last hour, and we're sincerely apologising for this short delay. please take the next couple of minutes to write down those burning GFF questions that you have while we get Rama on the line. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. तुम करती हो Please bear with us, everyone. We are on the 6th. Jessica. I can't hear anything, and audio options seem to only allow us listen only now.
Everyone, we're working on the technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience.
Also, okay. Thank you. Technical issue here. But पानी की खुशी है इसमें अभी थोड़ी थोड़ी है ये वीडियो कॉन्फ्रेंस
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Rama.
Rama, success.
Take it away whenever you're ready.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I guess it's a testament to the interest in this because I'm assuming as the attendees have been increasing in numbers, the technology is trying hard to keep up. So first and foremost, I wanted to just... Hello?
Great, and just thanks, Rama. Just to remind everyone to be on mute while Rama is presenting. Thank you very much.
Hi. I'll get right in, and first and foremost, just to express from the GFF Secretariat and the partnership at large that we are extremely grateful to FP2020 and other partners for organizing this critical event. And we really appreciate the proactivity and constructive collaboration that FP2020 has brought to this partnership. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. Yes, as you all know, the Global Financing Facility, which is a key financing platform to support every woman, every child, was launched at the July Financing for Development conference in 2015. It's an integral part of the global strategy for women's, adolescents, and children's health, and really smart, scaled, and sustainable financing to help in 63 high-burden countries by 2030. And I really wanted to stress that because even though the trust and I will come to that later. I hope you're hearing me.
Yes, Rama, thanks. Carry on.
Okay, and the combined effects of this partnership is estimated to prevent 24 to 38 million deaths of women, adolescents, and children by 2030. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, this was released at the Financing for Development, launched at the Financing for Development conference for a very important reason, because it is really about closing the financing gap in women's, adolescents, and children's health financing needs. And this slide really shows how through gains in efficiencies as well as economic growth and crowding in of domestic and external resources, both public and private, can really reduce the gap from $33.3 billion in 2015 to about $7.4 billion in 2030. Next slide, please. To quickly go over, I'm sure many of you are aware, so I'm not going to dwell on this, and you can ask questions as we move on. GFF, there is the what, the how, and the who. The what is really about, as you can see, focusing on results, but focusing on those results through smart financing is really looking at evidence-based, high-impact and cost-effective interventions. And I think FP2020 has been a leader in this, bringing this evidence and cost-effectiveness to the table. It's also about scaling up, so it's not about doing small projects or pilots or fragmented work, but really scaling it up at the country level and doing it in a sustainable manner, and for that bringing in, as I said, both domestic resources as well as external from public and private partners. The how of the GFF, there are four main parts to it. One is the development and implementation and monitoring of investment cases for RMNCAH, mobilization of financing for these investment cases. The investment cases are expected to be well prioritized, well costed, and of a quality that would inspire confidence for investments. These investment cases will also be accompanied by health financing strategies that will take a longer-term horizon to move the country towards its 2030 agenda. And fourthly, there are certain global public goods that could also be financed by the GFF, whether it's around commodity, knowledge sharing, community of practice building, etc. And the who of the GFF is, again to reiterate, there is the GFF Trust Fund that is hosted within the World Bank, but the GFF is a broader facility that consists of all financiers and other partners who can make either contributions to women and adolescents in the sphere of RMNCAA. Next slide, please.
Just pause for 1 second, Rama.
Sure.
Can I just remind everyone, absolutely everyone, apart from you, Rama, to mute their line, because I'm still getting quite a bit of feedback. If everyone could do that right now, that would be excellent. Thanks, Rama. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. So since the investment cases, I think, will be the main topic of discussion today at this meeting, I thought I would spend a little time just explaining the scope of these investment cases. As already mentioned, it's about ending preventable maternal and child deaths and improving the health and quality of women, children, and adolescents. But this is really through looking at not only clinical service delivery and preventive interventions, but also through broader health systems strengthening that is targeted towards improving RM and CAH outcomes, and really garnering in the key sectors that have enhanced these RM and CAH health outcomes, be it nutrition, education, water, sanitation, etc. And you will also see that civil registration and vital statistics straddles this diagram, because it's really about strengthening the linkages between the CRVS within the health systems and ensuring that we are really building a credible CRVS system for broader application. The important, and I think this is particularly something to be emphasized in the area of family planning, is about mainstreaming equity, gender and rights, as well as quality of care through these interventions. You will see that, as I mentioned earlier, the investment cases really prioritize interventions with a strong evidence base demonstrating impact. It emphasizes issues such as family planning, nutrition that have been historically underinvested in, as well as target populations such as adolescents or newborns who have also not received the attention they deserve. And furthermore, it focuses not only on the interventions themselves, but on service delivery approaches to ensure an efficient national response, whether it's task shifting, integration of service delivery, human resource worker adjustments, etc. Next slide, please. This is just to give you a quick overview. I don't want to dwell on this too long, but really since the announcement in September 2014 and the launch in July 2015, we have had not only the 4 front-runner countries that were originally planned, which were Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and DRC. There have been an additional 8 countries in the second wave that was announced in Addis. And we've also had our governance structure meet for the first time around the 2015 UNGA, and this governance structure is called the Investors Group. I'll talk a little more about it later. And the entire process, as you can see, of the business plan development was through a multi-stakeholder oversight group and business planning team. And I know FP2020 played an important role also, both in the development as well as we move forward into the implementation. Next slide, please. So I know today's was really about giving more of a flavor on what's happening in the various countries, and particularly in the Anglophone countries. I understand there will be another session with the Francophone countries. And so we tried to put here just a few broad strokes, and I'm country presentation we can get into much more details as required. But really, you will see that Bangladesh officially launched its GFF participation on January 24th, and analytical work around the health financing strategy is also underway. We have colleagues from countries on the phone, so they will be able to more detail during the Q&A. For Ethiopia, the health systems transformation plan was prepared through the JANS process. It was finalized and launched, and the idea here is that the country would distill the RM and CAHY from this HSTP to develop their prioritized and costed investment case. And this process is to be launched in February-March through the country's own JCF. The health financing strategy is also going through certain revisions, and a CRVS strategy is being developed to ensure that there are links with the health sector too. In the case of Kenya, a national RM and CAH framework has been developed which will inform county-level investment cases, and this is being finalized. and a draft health financing strategy is under review at the Ministry of Health. In the case of Liberia, a draft investment case is in progress, including a costing exercise to inform the final investment, and the country is also working on the health financing strategy draft. A CRVS investment case has also been drafted, and prioritization is under discussion in view of available financing. Nigeria is still early in the stage, and both the investment case and the financing strategy details are just starting to be discussed. And in the case of Tanzania, this is a country that actually is the only one that has actually received the Trust Fund IDA package in support of GFF. The investment case here was based on the One Plan 2 and fits very well within the HSSP4 that the country has developed and launched. The health financing strategy has also gone through several revisions, but now with the new government, there has been a slowdown to fully internalize the all aspects of it before it goes for parliamentary approval. There is also a CRVS strategy that is being finalized, and there is a strong link with the health sector, particularly through birth registration. In the case of Uganda, country is focusing on prioritizing and costing of key service delivery, and the health financing strategy is also being, the draft is being prepared and being consulted on. In the case of India, we are still waiting for details from the government on how exactly they would like to engage in the GFF process, and we hope to have that much more clearly articulated by the end of February. Next slide, please. Yes, and I think, again, to emphasize that family planning, because of its very nature of being smart and the need to scale and sustain financing for it, given the historic underinvestment, is showing up in many of the investment cases. It's being reflected throughout the One Plan 2. For example, there's MC, modern contraceptive prevalence rates is there in Tanzania. In Kenya, you have the investment case addressing both supply-side barriers as well as looking at some of the demand issues and increasing coverage of postpartum family planning services and facilities. Similarly, in Ethiopia, there are several high-level as well as intermediate targets and indicators around family planning. And in Uganda, too, which is in early stages, some of the underinvested areas such as teenage pregnancy being put up for monitoring. Next slide, please. So this was just to give you an overview of where the various investment cases are in the Anglophone countries. And here in this part of the presentation, I'd really like to move to the country platform or the process of engagement in the development, implementation, and monitoring of the investment case. So from an overview, what was agreed in the business plan was that the country platform, which is obviously being the locus of action, as the GFF is really about moving the needle at the country level. There would be partners from a broad set of stakeholders, from government and not just from the Ministry of Health, but Ministry of Finance and some of the other key sectors being brought in as needed. Civil society as well as private sector, affected populations, multilateral, bilateral agencies, and technical agencies, including UN agencies and others. So it's really bringing this wide group of stakeholders to participate and engage in the development as well as implementation and monitoring. The approach of this country platform was really not to be prescriptive about the form, but to build on existing structures while ensuring the two key principles of inclusiveness and transparency are maintained throughout. And in terms of the roles of this country platform, it was envisaged for the preparation and finalization of investment case as well as health financing strategies, bringing to bear the complementary harmonized funding necessary for the investment case, coordination of the technical assistance and implementation with an emphasis on ensuring that capacities are built at the country level and coordination of monitoring and evaluation. Next slide, please. Now we see some of the initial experiences emerging from the country platforms that are in place in some of the 12 countries that have moved forward with the GFF Trust Fund. And we see that countries are generally building on existing structures. In some cases, such as in Uganda, the current country platform fully meets the needs, and so that's what is being used. While in other countries, such as Cameroon and DRC, existing structures have been used as the starting point, but modifications are being made to ensure the inclusiveness as well as bring in the transparency. The second lesson that we've learned is that different approaches are sometimes needed to ensure that the right set of stakeholders are in the investment case vis-a-vis the health financing strategy. So in the case of Kenya, they're using two separate structures to help develop the investment case and the health financing strategy, whereas in other countries like Cameroon, they've used an overarching body with technical subcommittees. Next slide, please. And as we have, we had a workshop in Kenya in November where many participants, including FP2020, USAID, UNFPA, and others, contributed to the learning experiences and knowledge base there. And a few key requests came out from the countries. This was obviously bringing together country teams from both the ministries of health and finance as well as development partners, civil society, and private sectors to come in and discuss what they have seen as lessons learned and as well as what they have identified as useful for as we move forward. And some of the key requests included an interest in getting some flexible tools to support the work of the country platform. And one suggestion has been to develop more clear guidelines on country platforms that go beyond what is currently in the business plan. There was also a strong expression for further South-South exchanges so the countries could learn from each other's experiences, and a need for a focal point at the country level within the ministry to really serve as a communication and coordination point for the RMNCAH agenda, including the work that has started under the GFF. And civil society had a one-day workshop prior to the broader country workshop to discuss some of their specific issues. And what emerged from that workshop was that they were generally supportive of the principles of the country platform, but they were interested in how the minimum standards will be implemented and monitored, and they have actually put together some suggestions around this. And in particular, during the workshop, there was a proposal for the addition of principles of accountability for parties and really about mutual accountability and independence that was raised at the workshop. I think that brings me to the end of the slide. And I will now turn it over. Like I said, there are many other colleagues of mine from the Secretariat and from the country teams, task teams, but I just wanted to emphasize that we are here as much to listen and learn as to be able to respond to questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rama. That was a wonderful overview, as well as some really fascinating insight into the progress in the front runner and the second wave countries that I think is going to really generate, and is already generating, many questions. And we're going to ask you just to hold those questions for the Q&A section a little later in the webinar, if you would be so kind. And I'd like to then move through and ask Ellen Starbird from USAID to go through her presentation, which is an excellent exposition of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 17 clear reasons to invest in family planning. Thank you very much, Ellen. And we're hoping for less technical issues as we start this one. Ellen, Are you there?
Morning.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Ellen. And you're a little faint. Maybe if you get started, we'll see how the volume is going. Thanks very much for your time this morning, Ellen. Again, as we just fix this small problem, please be putting out your questions. Feel free to email them over to us as well as to write them down for later. Your questions on the webinar so far. Ellen?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thanks so much for bearing with us, Ellen. The floor is yours.
Thanks. And thanks, Martin, and thank you also, Rama, for a really great framing for this whole webinar. As Martin noted, we here at USAID feel strongly that the SDGs provide a really nice framework for thinking about family planning, and that there are ways to connect family planning to pretty much every one of the 17 SDGs. So this presentation, if we can go to the next slide, is actually organized in the same way as the organizing principles of the Sustainable Development Goals themselves, which take the 17 SDGs and sort them across 5 categories of people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. And I'm not going to read the description of each of these categories that's here on this slide. You can read it yourself. You can also find it in the preamble of the goals themselves. But what I am going to do is, over the next slides, talk about the goals that are in each of these categories and make some of the linkages to family planning. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. First off, in the category of people, family planning affects people in myriad ways, advancing human rights, reducing poverty and hunger, and contributing to improvements in health, education, and gender equality. So we know, for example, that high fertility is linked to household poverty, so there's a link to Goal 1. Under Goal 2, we know that children born after a shorter birth interval of about 2 years are 27% more likely to be stunted and 23% more likely to be underweight. So family planning can contribute to improved nutrition in that one, and also help to end hunger. With respect to ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all ages, there are many, many connections here. This is the goal in which family planning is specifically mentioned in the context of universal access to reproductive health services and care. So there are approximately 225 million women in the developing world today with unmet need for family planning. Providing those women with that access could reduce maternal deaths 25 to 50% and child deaths by as much as 20%. If the needs of HIV-positive women, family planning needs of those women, and ARVs, those needs were fully met, HIV transmission from mother to child would be nearly eliminated, reduced by 93% annually. And also reductions in unintended pregnancy would reduce abortion by 67% and result in an 81% in the decline of maternal deaths from unsafe abortion. So many, many connections, obviously, in the health arena. In terms of goals 4 and 5 around quality education and gender equality, we know that pregnancy is often a reason that girls drop out of school. So enabling them to avoid unintended pregnancy allows them to stay in school. And we also know that there are very strong relationships between family planning and education use. Women, girls with higher education are more likely to be family planning users. And finally, that education is linked to empowerment and the ability to participate in lots of other arenas in life. And related also to the gender equality goal, family planning does support this basic right to choose the number, timing, and spacing of your children, and thereby contributes to gender equality and empowerment. Next slide, please. In terms of the goals that are related to the planet, there are many here, and most of the links to family planning in this set have to do with the impact of family planning on population growth by reducing fertility. And that connects to a lot of things. So if we think about access to water, goal 6, evidence suggests that there'll be more than 3.5 billion people living in areas that are water scarce by 2035. So if we can slow population growth by helping women have only the children we want, we can push that timeline farther into the future and also work around the world, not just in developing countries, but in developed countries as well, on sustainable consumption. We think about goals 9 and 11 around infrastructure and sustainable cities. Family planning can help buy time for governments to meet growing needs for water, housing, hospitals, other services, and really try to invest in the quality of those instead of just trying to keep up with very rapid population growth. Goals 12, 13, and 15 around responsible consumption and production, climate action, and life on land. As I said earlier, we know that the family planning works to reduce fertility and slow population growth and can provide 16 to 29% of the needed decrease in greenhouse gas emissions and reduce the need to increase food production. So these population dynamic impacts are really quite strong and are throughout the set of SDGs. Next slide, please. In terms of the category of prosperity and peace, family planning, the principal way this works here is that family planning can help change the age structure. If families have fewer children, partly because their children are surviving, you end up with a growing portion of the population in working ages and fewer dependents at both the, particularly at the young end. And that increases the relative size of the workforce and enables greater savings at both the household and the national level. And this is a prerequisite for the demographic dividend. And the demographic dividend is a window of opportunity for rapid economic growth that comes about with rapidly reduced fertility and this change in age structure and increase in the working age population. And rates of return where fertility is currently quite high, exceed 8% of GDP. A couple of important things about the demographic dividend include pursuing it in an equitable way so that the benefits are distributed to everyone, and with particular attention to education, particularly for girls, and supportive economic and labor policies. Family planning also allows women to play a greater role in the economy, and smaller families have more resources to invest in each child. With respect to peace and justice and strong institutions, there is an emerging body of evidence that suggests that countries that have a low average age, so an average age of the population under age 25, that's associated with a greater risk of civil conflict. So investments in youth populations where you already have a large youth population to ensure that they have the kind of education they need to find jobs and are able to participate in a constructive way in the economic, social, and political lives of their country is really important to them feeling engaged and wanting to be invested in a positive future. If we go to the next slide on partnership, all of the Sustainable Development Goals are designed to be pursued within partnerships. This is not something that any country can achieve probably on its own, and that the developed countries have as much responsibility for achieving these goals as the developing countries do. Fortunately, in family planning, we have lots of really good partnerships, including Family Planning 2020, the UN Commission for Life-Saving Commodities, the MDG Health Alliance, various foundations, the relationships that the community has with donors, civil society, and the private commercial sector. So those have all been very involved in helping to revitalize family planning. And I think we have a strong base to build on going forward, and certainly new partnerships will appear over the coming 15 years. And then I will go up to the last slide. And I think these are useful data. We know often that it's hard for the Ministry of Health to have conversations with the Ministry of Finance. We don't always speak the same language, but I think some of the information on this slide about the savings and cost effectiveness of family planning can be really useful. So for every dollar invested in family planning, between about $1.50 and $4 can be saved in maternal and newborn health care. And in addition to maternal family planning, as well as newborn services, one could save $1.5 billion for achieving the same health outcomes. And then we know that scaling up modern contraceptive methods would avert 54% of the 147 million child deaths under the high investment scenario from the Global Investment Framework for Women's and Children's Health. They only require 4% of the intervention cost over the period 2035. So I hope this presentation has given you some ways to think about how to link family planning to other development goals in your country and make a strong case for investments in it in your investment case for the GFF. There are a number of specific kinds of interventions that you will want to be considering that are beyond the scope of this particular presentation, but they include postpartum family planning, which Rama mentioned, but also there are a number of other known high-impact interventions that should be considered depending on what the needs are at the country level. And we can certainly look for another opportunity to talk about those in more detail. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Ellen, thank you very much for that wealth of reasons spread across the broad scope of the SDGs, why investment in family planning is so vital and so necessary. I think that that gives all of us, whether we're writing and being involved in investment cases or in the sector at large, some great statistics to be working with, and it's part of an evolving agenda as we look to further articulate the economic value out of family planning in the coming months. So this is really a wonderful summary. Thank you very much indeed, and please everyone keep those questions coming, either on email or on the chat over to my colleague Jessica, or hold them for our Q&A session, which will be along in just a few minutes' time. We're nicely on schedule, thanks to Rama and Ellen for moving through their presentations with clarity and speed. And so we move into the third section of our webinar this morning, and my colleague Monica Kerrigan from FP2020 is going to talk about the global financing facilities and opportunity, and looking at tools to capitalize on this new RMNCAH financing mechanism. And we really hope that this session leads to a dialogue on the ways that FP2020 as a secretariat and as a movement can support the focal points in country as they move through the GFF process. So with that, Monica, I'd like to hand over to you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Martin, and big thanks to Rama and the GFF Secretariat, and Ellen at USAID, and also Doug Deashin, our colleagues at UNFPA, who are really stellar partners in FP2020. And my slide deck is just very short, but it's a reminder of where we all began at the London Summit on Family Planning, where we made family planning an urgent priority by promoting the rights of women and girls to determine whether, when, and how many children they have without coercion and discrimination. Next slide. So really, I think all of you who have participated in FP 2020 know this, but of the 69 countries, more than half now have made government pledges. We're in the middle of FP 2020, and it's very similar to the GFF and many partnerships, where our key principles are country ownership, harnessing existing platforms, really looking at a return on investment, and embracing inclusiveness and transparency. So in the middle of our circle is our government budget. Also around that circle is the stakeholder alignment. So many of you have country coordinating committees that include civil society, private sector, government. You all work together to bend that curve to improve access, equity, and quality of family planning services. There are 4 spokes to the FP 2020 wheel, and many of you are working on them right now. We have almost all in the GFF have already national costed family planning plans. That's one scope. The second scope is resource mobilization. So we ask governments to put in money for FP2020. We ask bilateral and foundations to put in funding for FP2020. We ourselves at FP2020 look to mobilize resources through our existing mechanisms of the RRM and new mechanisms that we have, like the GFF. We look at execution and scale-up as key, and both Ellen and Rama mentioned the importance of our high-impact interventions to really make a difference in the lives of women and girls. And then part of FP2020 was a data revolution. For the first time, we are publishing annual data on additional women and girls using contraception, along with 15 other indicators. And many of you who are at the International Conference on Family Planning received an update on our measurement annex, and if you haven't, we can certainly provide that to you. But every year from now until 2020, we will be publishing that data, looking at that return on investment, looking at performance, and really helping every country identify where we are having successes and where we're not moving that quickly. And around the outside of the wheel is transparency and accountability. A big part of, I think, what we all want to do is get civil society more engaged in this accountability and transparency mechanism. So I want to share that with you because in so many respects, a lot of the work over the last 3.5 years that you have all done really can link into the GFF investment case. So next slide, please. We've prepared a checklist for you to begin to think about it, and I met many of you when we were at the Nairobi meeting, and met many of you when we were at the international conference. But as you begin to build your investment case, please look at the commitment made by your government, and we have all those on our website, and we can be sending those to you. Each of your governments made an ambitious but hopefully achievable goal. All of you have costed implementation plans, so let's take a look at those costed implementation plans and look at the goals, look at the budgets for supply and demand interventions that both we're harnessing the public and the private sector. Let's utilize the data that we already have to build your investment cases. I want to also call out the importance of commodity security. Many of the investment cases looked at the forecasting and procurement issues as we begin to double and triple the number of contraceptive users given the tremendous unmet need in your countries. Also looking at ensuring commodity security. No product, no program. So let's take a look at that. And all those documents are available, and we can share those with you. Another key issue, and Uganda is one of the countries that has done an outstanding job here, is looking at that gap analysis. So as we looked at what did the government put in, what did bilateral donors put in, what did foundations put in, what is the gap in terms of those high-impact interventions that you want to move forward on, and how can we really help you build that case through the GFF, and how do we bend the curve? I think one of the biggest challenges is with across the continuum of care of RM and CAH, how do we identify those, and how do we help countries build that case? And we can definitely assist you there. And then the last thing is let's use the data. One of the things that we have begun to look at is if you are currently doing, for example, or a higher performer, and are doing a 2% increase in modern contraceptive use annually, what we don't want to see in the GFF is that you choose a 1% increase. We want you to continue to bend that curve, and I think we all want to see that return on investment. And I think one of the things that we are want to put out there is we are very interested in helping you use your data to help you identify those performance issues. And we definitely have many new partners like Track 20, PMA 2020, our DHS colleagues, and Avenir Health Tech that can help and assist us. So our next slide is really just talking about the strength of the partnership between GFF and our FP 2020, and really, again, building on that country ownership, continuing that active engagement of our country coordination teams, building on the civil society, faith-based leaders, and private sector to catalyze that change, continue to encouraging the use of the data revolution and the performance monitoring and management, that we at the Secretariat at FP2020 and also at the GFF and at USAID and UNFPA have many technical partners that we could help you to develop your draft case. We are also very interested in learning from you about what your needs are, especially on this phone call and in other opportunities. And I think one of the things that on a recent phone call with Minister Kolsek from Senegal that she underlined is really the integration that is happening. I think one of the things that the GFF for the first time offers for all of us is an ability to integrate like never before, and the ability to move from our silos to a more integrated platform of service delivery that's really going to impact those vulnerable populations, as Rama pointed out. And really pushing the envelope for many of us, FP2020 is a great start, but as we look at the tremendous needs of mothers, newborns, and youth, how do we act differently in countries to allow that new platform to develop and grow? And I think that is an opportunity, but also a challenge that is set forth, and I think the GFF offers us this great opportunity to now to think differently, to act differently, and to work differently. So I'm going to turn it back over to Martin and the team here, and we're looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Monica, for that rallying cry as countries are involved in this process to really look very clearly at the opportunities and make sure that it is data-driven. So now we move into a fascinating phase of the webinar where we ask for some country reflections. And before I move into that, just to confirm to everyone, we have 52 participants on the line, which is great. And as Rama said, as that number swelled through the opening 30 minutes or so, and it's great that we do have representation from many of the countries, both in the front runner and second wave countries. Now, just a couple of things to say before I invite some country reflections. Firstly, they should be reflections, not questions. The Q&A comes a little bit later. And secondly, I would ask colleagues to be succinct. And in messaging out to the countries in advance of this webinar, we did ask if there could be one individual per country who could give 2 or 3 minutes of reflection. I simply don't have the time to be able to go into 4 or 5 individuals from each country to give their reflections. So I hope you will bear with me on that. So having said, given those 2 pieces of guidance, I'd like to ask colleagues from many of the front-runner countries. I understand we do have colleagues on the line from Kenya and Tanzania. I'm not sure about Ethiopia. If you could just give us a couple of minutes on your reflections. Rama's given us a summary from her perspective, but obviously we're very, very keen to hear from the countries themselves. So could I ask for a colleague from Kenya or Tanzania to give us their views in a succinct 2-minute update?
Okay, this is Kenya. Can you hear
Great,
me?
and who's that speaking from Kenya?
Yeah, this is Dr. Jocelyn Kibaro-Baya from the National Council for Population and Development.
Well, it's great to hear from you, and thanks so much for taking the time. Everyone else on mute, please. Please continue.
Yes, I said I'm the focal point for the FP2020 for Kenya, and I have 2 colleagues from NCPD. So I'll just go straight on and appreciate the presentation by our 2 colleagues from FP20, 3 colleagues from GFF, from the World Bank, the USAID, and the FP2020. I think those were very interesting reflection on how we can move together in terms of integrating all these partnerships. Having said that, I believe the World Bank colleague did indicate that Kenya already has finalized the RMNCH framework for the GFF, and we are currently in the process of finalizing the health financing strategy. Of course, listening to the discussion today, and especially the checklist from from Monica, yes, from Monica FP2020, we realize that despite the fact that our framework does have strategies which are for immediate action in family planning, maybe there is one or two things we can look at from the checklist in terms of strengthening the immediate actions which we've already put in our framework. So I am a member of the steering committee for the development of this framework for Kenya. So we'll be looking at how, as we finalize this process, we are able to really see how to match all these, to look at the checklist and make sure that everything is taken into consideration. I think I'll stop there. I believe I've spent my 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Josephine. Not only a fascinating insight, but nicely within the 2 minutes that I gave you. So for that, our sincere appreciation, and we do intend to come back to several of the points you raised during the discussion. I'd like to move to Tanzania and understand if there's anyone on the line who feels able to give us just a couple of minutes of insight into the process in Tanzania so far.
Hi, this is Shannon from USAID Tanzania. Just quickly, I think the overviews that Rama and Ellen gave were very helpful and on point in terms of the progress that we've made in Tanzania. Just want to re-emphasize and highlight the importance of allowing the government to take the lead in deciding whether or not there's going to be a separate GFF task force and separate GFF investment case versus one that is reflective of the existing strategies in the country. I think Tanzania did decide to use their own One Plan 2 strategy and health financing strategy and to use the existing TWG structure for GFF. And for us, that has been, a positive move in that GFF has really been adopted as the country's way of achieving their maternal and child and adolescent and family planning goals. And it's not seen here as a donor-driven process, whereas I think for Tanzania, if it was completely separate and perceived as parallel, it wouldn't have been so easily adopted into the way that the country functions. So just wanted to reemphasize that for some of the second wave countries that may be, beginning to engage with their government counterparts on this.
Thank you very much indeed, Shannon. And we move, I don't know if there are any colleagues from Ethiopia on the line. I haven't been able to pick them up from the identifier. Anyone from Ethiopia there? If not, we will move on. And we have several second wave countries on the line with us, and so I'd like to turn to Bangladesh first and ask if there's a brief comment of 2 minutes or so from a colleague from Bangladesh on the GFF process so far. If not, then no problem. We have several other countries to get through. I would come back to Bangladesh in a second, but I understand we have 2 colleagues on the line from Cameroon, and thank you very much for joining us. We will be hosting a GFF webinar, a Francophone webinar in the coming weeks, but great that you could join us this morning. Could I ask if there are any comments from colleagues in Cameroon as far as the GFF process so far?
Yep, sure. Hi, this is Jake, the TCL for Cameroon. We are currently in the preparation process of the investment case. So the Ministry of Public Health is moving forward with setting up the platform, ensuring that civil society, the private sector, the various ministries, and the development partners are all involved. There's a resource mapping currently ongoing. And we have a lot of activities planned for the month of February linked to the prioritization process for the investment case. And I have confirmation from the government and the team leading the process that the FP2020 scale-up documents are being used as one as inputs for the situation analysis, but two also be used for this prioritization dialogue, and of course family planning will be one of the key pillars of the investment case. We can guarantee that. So I think we'll have a better idea of what the main components or pillars of the investment case will be by the end of the month, and then the country has about 2 more months to go through the entire process of drafting the investment case and validating it in country. I think that's all I can say for Cameroon for now.
And thank you very much, Jake, and excellent to hear from World Bank colleague in country and to understand the process is at quite an advanced stage, and we sincerely appreciate that update, Jake. Thank you so much. We have a few other second wave countries to hear from where I understand there are representatives on the line. If I could ask India, for one of the colleagues from India to give us a short update of a couple of minutes or so, that would be wonderful.
Hi Martin, this is Amit from USAID India.
Amit, hi. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Great presentations, and I speak on behalf of all my colleagues, FP2020 colleagues in India from UNFPA, USAID, GATES, as well as DFID. Those who are there on the call as well as not there. There was a lot of confusion. We don't have any updates, but we were really waiting for this call to get updates on what GFF is all about, as well as what it means for the FP2020 effort. And this has been helpful to get updates on that. So we really didn't have any information prior to this call about what it means. So this has been helpful. But just one point that we wanted clarification was, Rama mentioned that they are waiting confirmation from Government of India about how their engagement will be, wherein we had heard from the ministry that they had already submitted an investment case for immunization. So we don't have any updates on that. So would it be possible to get information? That was one. Yeah.
Great. I like the way you stuck a quick question in there against my guidance, Amit. But no problem at all.
Sorry.
And when we get into our Q&A section, we'll obviously circle back and ask Rama a little bit more about the India process. So thank you very much, Amit. We have a couple of other second wave countries that I believe are on the line, and I'd like to ask any colleagues from Liberia who might be with us to give us an update from Monrovia. Okay, in that case, I'll just move quickly to any colleagues from Uganda who might have an update on the GFF process. I hear a siren in the background. So who's having trouble speaking? Okay. So we'll come back to Uganda in a second. I think there's a technical issue. We will get that sorted out. In addition, I understand a colleague from Nigeria may be on the line with us. Nigeria being another second wave country, of course. Could I ask for any insights from the Nigeria? Thanks.
Thank you very much, and I want to say that I appreciate all the presenters, and this is quite instructive. We're at the rudimentary stage. And what we're doing now is just the analytical work, and we're background information and how we're going to actually develop the investment case and the financial strategy. And it's also good to know that we're in touch with all the forerunner countries so that we could get ideas on how to start it. So for now, we just rally around all the partners so that we can actually get more information on how to actually forge ahead on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll just circle back to Uganda and see if we have audio. Then I might ask for a few brief bullet points that I can articulate to the group, if that's okay. So, are there any countries online that I haven't that we haven't managed to get to? I think we maybe we just quickly pause and see if there's a colleague from Bangladesh who might want to say a few words, and then we will move into the Q&A section.
Yeah, maybe I can talk about Bangladesh, Dinesh. And in Bangladesh, Bangladesh has been having a large sector program which captures the entire sectoral budgets, both partners and domestic resources. Bangladesh is on its way to developing its next sector program, and family planning is a key aspect of this, and it's one of the key drivers of the program. The launch of the Global Financing Facility happened on January 24th, and over the next few months, there will be an integral process led by the government in the country, and which will lead on to the development of the next sector program, into which the GFF will be a key part. Thank you.
Sure. Yep. Good idea. So great. And we've had updates in the countries again. Uganda, I will make sure that we get yours in before the end. And of course, there are a couple of countries that we haven't heard from, DRC and Senegal, who'll be part of a future Francophone webinar. But I thought it would be good if Michele from the World Bank gave us a short insight into the DRC process, which I think has some useful lessons in terms of their experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And Adia will join, and the TTL will join the Francophone webinar. But just to let you know that actually in DRC there has been a good momentum around the GFF process, and we heard in Bali that the Prime Minister and Finance have agreed to have a budget line allocated for family planning for the first time. $3.5 million not going to make all the difference, but I think it's a very important signal, and we should keep on that. So DRC as well, we have seen very progress in terms of policy setting, and it's the result of a lot of partners working together the common agenda.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Michele. Any audio from Uganda? Okay, as I say, I will give you the opportunity to speak either directly or through me. But let's get into some Q&A if we can. And so the next section, as I see it, and we are back on schedule. Firstly, there are a number of questions that have come through that are primarily to be answered by colleagues at the World Bank, and I'll pose one or two of those. Open up the lines then for any further. But I am then keen to get into this second section of a more interactive discussion, if we can. And so I think we probably have about another 20 minutes in total. Would that be correct? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Jessica. And obviously, all questions will be answered, whether now or over email. Or over email later. So firstly, and this question came in from a colleague very early on in the webinar, and maybe Rama, I can put this question to you. Where can countries actually access those investment cases that are final at this stage, or when they are finalized?
Thank you very much for that, and I think that's an excellent question, because one of the issues that's been really bubbling up, and we are very much aware of and giving a priority to, is communications, because obviously that's critical for everyone to engage in. And so there is a website that is well under preparation, where we hope to have all these documents, not only the investment cases, etc., on it, but also important toolkits and other resources, such as guidelines for preparation of investment cases, on the health financing strategy and things. And I know one of my colleagues from Comms, Jacqueline, you're on the line. If you have anything else to add, please come in, but otherwise I know it's in its final, and hopefully before the end of this month that should be up and running for public use.
Great, thank you, Rama. So I'll move on if that's okay. I probably have 3 or 4 more questions. I'll aim to get through them quickly. And please, everyone on the line, indicate if you have any questions at this stage for World Bank colleagues in this section of the webinar. So the next question is this. So who are the main decision makers that we need to target at the country level in order to tailor our advocacy efforts? We would like to unlock GFF funds for family planning services and commodities, and would like some further guidance. Rama, shall I go to you first again on this, if that's okay?
Sure, no problem. And I'm happy for other colleagues of mine, including Monique, who's the program manager. I think she was on also. But maybe just to first and foremost reiterate that this is really a country-led and country-owned process, and I think Shannon put it very well. Unless there is complete ownership by the government, it's going to be difficult to move this forward too. But then obviously country goes beyond the government, and there are many other stakeholders who play a role. So really I think a critical engagement point is through these country platforms, which different countries have taken various paths to develop and put in place, but having, as I mentioned earlier, a focal point within the ministry whom people could go for access to information has come up as really important. I know we have made some connections with the TTLs at the country level, but this is really the GFF is bigger and beyond the IDA, so we are actively in discussions at the country level to ensure that such a focal point is put in place to be able to provide that kind of coordination role. But I think the building of the investment case is really what the country would move forward on, and so it would be the Ministry of Health or a sub-department within that would be taking the real lead on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rama. And Monique, anything to add? I have a follow-up question as well on this.
She may have dropped off.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well there's a question which is an immediate follow-up actually, which is that what are the next steps once the investment cases and the financing plans are indeed in place? Indeed, crucially, when does disbursement actually start? And maybe you can you can just speak about that in general terms, Rama.
Sure. Absolutely, and I think again, the GFF is a partnership, so it's about bringing multiple financiers to the table. The most important being obviously the government itself, and so domestic resources. So in the case of the GFF Trust Fund, and I really want to emphasize this because these 12 countries have trust fund monies that are sort of accompanied or become part of an IDA, bigger IDA package, which is directed towards RMNCAH. And so in that case, once the investment case is agreed upon and the piece of that investment case that the IDA package, including the trust fund, would support comes up, it then follows the regular IDA process of going through its appraisal and negotiations between the government and the bank and board approval at the bank. So this is for that piece of the investment case that is part of the IDA. But obviously there will be other financiers too who would be crowded into this investment case. So for example, in Tanzania, there's USAID. There are also other grant supporters like the Power of Nutrition that has come in. So, and in different countries, these investment case financiers take a different tack on this. So just on the IDA package, it would follow the IDA project cycle, and as soon as it is approved, it goes through what we call going into effectiveness, and then disbursements begin. And in some cases, if countries want to front load certain activities, they can do so as soon as this approval process is in place.
Great, Rama, excellent. Michele, any?
No, thank you, Rama. Absolutely. At the end, each, financier follows different processes. In the case of the trust fund and IDA, it follows IDA. At that point, the government prepares a plan that then is appraised by IDA. I think to influence how that plan or contribute to that plan, everybody should work with clearly the government team in charge of preparing the IDA project and maybe interact with the World Bank team who is leading that effort. So again, both the government and the bank.
Great, thanks. So two or three more questions, if that's okay, before we move into the, I wouldn't say a free-for-all, but a more interactive phase. So this is a three-parter, if that's okay. So how do we decide on GFF countries? When is the next wave of GFF, the third wave we might call it, if there indeed would be one? And is it always at a national level, or are there sometimes cases where GFF would be focused on a particular subnational element, a state or a province in particular need within a country? So a three-parter. Who would like to take that first of all?
Hi, Martin. I'm happy to take that on, and I think it's great because this was something that I had hoped to be able to cover in the presentation, but given the time limitations, I didn't get to it. So I think, again, just to bring up the fact that there are 63 GFF eligible countries, and as we all know, only 12 of them have received the trust fund monies now. I think there's a clear understanding. I did mention about the governance body. There is an investors group which consists of 23 different entities, whether countries, bilaterals, multilaterals, civil society, private sector, etc., who have come together and who are sort of providing the kind of oversight and advisory role for the broader facility itself, including the trust fund. So what has been discussed there is that, instead of going in waves, because really all the intention is to cover all the 63 countries because they are all identified as high burden, there would the investors group, which is meeting in February, is going to be discussing a paper that really looks at options and how we can expand this in a considered but and effective manner through all the 51, so that we are not in this process of just coming up with waves of countries, but really understanding the country needs, the country commitment, financiers' willingness to put money at the table, working through the health sector planning cycles, RMNCH, subsector cycles, etc., and building on whatever are good examples at the country level to make GFF happen in the various countries. At this point, I think we are also trying to consolidate some of the early lessons learned and bring forward, as was mentioned before, some key guidelines, etc., that countries have requested, so that it can be introduced in a manner that is faithful to the various principles of the GFF that were agreed upon. So what I'm coming to is in mid-February there is a second investors group meeting, and hopefully at that point we will be able to agree on the approach that will set forth at least the plan for rolling out the GFF across all 51 countries. Thank you.
Great, and the subnational?
Yes, sorry. The subnational, at this point within the trust fund itself, the IDA program is an agreement at the national level, but as within that discussion and in the investment cases, there is clearly a great amount of room and scope for focusing in areas of inequities, whether it be geographical areas, subnational administrative units, or population. So, for example, I think in Kenya, given that there are a group of counties, I think between 15 to 20, that account for more than 85 to 90% of their maternal and child health burden, ill health burden. Those are the ones that are getting sort of additional attention and targeted resources within the investment case. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. And so we originally said this would finish at 9:30 Eastern Time, which is about 5 minutes, but there are significant questions and discussions, so we do intend to just continue this on for a few minutes. We will understand if you need to drop off, and if in dropping off you do have other questions that you would like to pose to us, please make sure those come through. We will ensure that they are answered, of course. So a couple of quick ones and then some more interactive discussion. Does a country need to complete the investment case with the costing score application? And what are the criteria for application? Now, I don't claim to completely understand that question. My apologies. Rama, do you get it?
Well, not so much on the costing score, etc., but maybe I can just say that there is no specific application process for the GFF Trust Fund. As has been discussed, it's really about the development of that investment case and the health financing strategy. And in certain countries, it has used, as in Tanzania, the One Plan 2, which was already the RMNCAH plan of the country, and then really discussing for the trust fund with the package of IDA which areas would get that the resources within that investment case. So again, there is no formal application process because I think we did want to, we as a partnership wanted to avoid having a verticalized application process for the GFF.
Great, thanks, Rama. So I have outstanding questions from India and Kenya, as well as a pending update from Uganda that I will try and sprinkle through the next few minutes. But I think it's important that we get into this interactive part as soon as we can. So I'd like to invite sort of further comment on the line now from colleagues from Focal Points. Particularly in terms of technical assistance needs and in terms, of course, of the crucial elements of civil society involvement and organization. And so we'll open up the lines, and I will try and moderate so we have one at a time. And so I'd ask for comments, particularly in the areas of technical assistance and civil society. Anyone like to get us started? Yeah, and this is the time when I encourage you to unmute yourself. I've been encouraging you to do the opposite for the first hour and a half. Hello. So don't be shy.
Hello, Martin.
Hi. Who is this, please?
Hi, Martin. Dr. Talib Lashari.
Oh, Dr. Lashari. Good to hear your voice. Please, your contribution, if you can, and succinctly, please.
May I go with my question?
Yeah, please. That's great.
Thank you. Really, I greatly appreciate the presentations and the contribution by the presenters. Question was that I appreciate the GFF process, but in Pakistan, after the constitutional amendment, now the CIPs are being developed at provincial levels. So our GFF case would also be at subnational level. So though I partly understood what the previous presenter replied to the question, but would you please explain further that in case we develop a case, GFF case for CIP SIM, or GFF case for Punjab CIP, or GFF case for federal level regions, how it would be possible to have few different GFF cases?
Great, thanks, Dr. Lashari. Michele will answer your question.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, when we work with countries that have a more federal system, the IDA and World Bank more broadly does indeed work with the individual governments of national governments and provinces or states, depending on the country. It is indeed a dialogue that is coordinated by our main counterpart, which is the Ministry of Finance at the federal level, but there are quite well-established mechanisms to work on financing programs at the subnational.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Other questions or comments on the line, and I am particularly keen to hear about civil society involvement and representation in this phase, if we can.
Hello?
Hi, who's this, please?
Hello? Yeah, this is Josephine from Kenya.
Josephine, thanks. Good to hear from you again.
It's just to bring up the issue of involvement of civil society and other stakeholders. In this, I believe in the Kenyan meeting in November, it came out very clearly that everybody may not be involved. So coordination is key, and that focal point for coordinating the development of the investment case in country is really critical, even as countries move on to and start process.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Josephine. I'd invite any comments from USAID, UNFPA, World Bank colleagues on the line related to Josephine's point.
Could I come in, Martin? Rama here.
Yes, please. Thanks, Rama.
Yes, thank you. And I think I did mention that the CSOs also had a workshop in Kenya prior to the broader country workshop, and Josephine, your points are absolutely on target. I think we are well aware that these country platforms are working, in various stages of from very well to not so well in different countries, and bringing that inclusivity and transparency and the communications is critical. So as I mentioned, both the communications as well as getting a focal point is a priority for the GFF. And I think one of the interesting issues that came around this inclusivity and voice is also on the country platforms, having civil society, because especially covering this continuum of care span, there will probably be at best one or two agencies or entities that would be part of country platform directly, but it's really important that then a network of civil society organizations are kind of formed and communicate so that there is this bilateral exchange, so they understand what's happening within the country platform as well as are able to inform and influence what is the discussions taking place around the investment case and health financing strategy. So it's two parts to it. One is the inclusivity and making sure that the country platform itself has appropriate representation of stakeholders who are credible, but it's also important that those representatives ensure that they network back into a broader swath of their own communities to ensure better information transfer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rama. We've got time for a couple more comments on the line. I still have two questions outstanding here in front of me also. We hope you're all still okay to bear with us for another 5 or 8 minutes. Any last questions or comments via audio? Okay, well, I'm just going to jump in, picking up on Amit's question, sneaky question, in his short presentation about the status of the GFF process with regard to India following on from the Kenya workshop, and crucially, another question on the line: who's actually steering the process? Again, Ram or other colleagues, any further insights into the India process?
Yes, I'm going to call on my colleague Jorge, who's also online and in India, to respond, please. Jorge?
We do see Jorge on the line, so hopefully...
maybe you need to unmute him?
No, he should be unmuted.
Jorge, you're unmuted and ready to go. Okay, and while we work on... okay.
Can you hear
Jorge,
me?
Can you hear us? Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah, so I guess the question was two parts: who's the focal point in the government, and who's steering the process. The focal point is the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and this has been discussed at all levels, including the secretary and the minister. But the key focal person is Mr. C.K. Mishra, who's the additional secretary and mission director of the National Health Mission. And basically, India is having an internal discussion about what is their role or roles in the GFF. As you can understand, India is a really big country, and so being a recipient of GFF Trust Fund resources is only one of the aspects of India's participation, and perhaps not the key driver, as the resources available would be relatively small compared to India's budget. So they are in the process, they are having that discussion internally, and we are expecting them to get back to us by the end of February with a formal decision on the different roles that India will play in the GFF, including whether or not they will be recipients of the GFF Trust Fund grant. In terms of steering the process, the GFF...
Yeah, carry on, please.
The GFF Secretariat, yep, and also the World Bank Health team here in India have been part of these discussions. And I just wanted to clarify, there seems to be some confusion from the colleague in USAID India. There are two separate things. I mean, there's a conversation around the GFF, and also we know the Ministry of Health is in conversations with the Ministry of Finance about a potential World Bank lending operation that would include immunization, among other things. Now, the way the bank process works here in India is that we in the bank don't know officially about this until the Ministry of Finance actually sends a request to us. So all we know is unofficial, but we know there is indeed a conversation between the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Finance about potential World Bank lending operation. But this is not an investment case, and this is happening from before India was included in the list of second wave countries, and it's likely to go ahead regardless of what role India decides to play in the GFF. If India decides to be a recipient of GFF Trust Fund grant, it is likely that these two things would be related and would go together. But we don't know that until India has made a decision and communicates officially a decision to the World Bank about the role they want to play in GFF.
Thanks, Jorge. And another interesting comment on the line, which links to Rama's point about sort of crowding in funding for broader RMN CAH issues. A question about whether the private sector are ever involved. There's a mandated 2% on net profits under the Companies Act in India, and whether the World Bank is and country governments are ever in conversation with the private sector about how they can add their financial heft to these arrangements. I don't know if you want to talk about that specifically in India, Jorge, or more generally, Rama.
Sorry, I can talk more generally on the involvement of the private sector, and just wanted to again emphasize, thank you for that question, because as we discussed, this is really a key financing platform, and it's trying to bring in a very much domestic resources, but also within that context, as well as from the international side, private sector resources. So private sector engagement is one of the key strands within the GFF, and it's taking up, again, like civil society, I think private sector has is a very diverse set of partners, or whether they are providers or they are in manufacturing like pharmaceuticals, or in providing of technical assistance, etc. So we have, and of course sources of financing directly. So there are several conversations going on around whether it's to raise funding through issuance of bonds, and here again I think the World Bank, the IFC arm of ours, and its work with the private sector will play an important role, but also at the country level, being able to bring in working capital for small and medium-sized providers, bringing in their technical assistance and capacities on supply chain, on various other aspects, is very much a discussion, and private sector is both on the investors group of the GFF as well as key partners in the at the country level in the country platform. So absolutely, the GFF really is looking to bring them in, not just as a corporate social responsibility, but in the form of shared value in making it a really sustainable mechanism for engagement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rama. And just to set out, please, we do want to hear your views as far as technical assistance needs that you have as we move through the coming months of the GFF process. And while it's probably not possible to articulate all of those on the line now, please do email us with those needs so we can make sure as a FP 2020 Secretariat and linking with other colleagues that we can make sure that they are met. Now, just as far as Uganda's contribution is concerned, we have a very detailed update that we really do want to circulate. It's quite detailed for me to set out in the closing minutes of this call, but thank you to colleagues in Uganda. We will send that around, particularly slides 11 through 14, which detail the current stage of the process. I do have several other questions that it's probably difficult for us to get fully answered now, including a key question from a colleague in Kenya. So again, those will be answered in the coming hours via email, and we will get back to you. As I say, I'm acutely conscious of time. It's approaching 9:45 here in Washington, which is 15 minutes over our time slot. So unfortunately, I'm going to need to bring us to a close. It would be lovely to talk GFF all day, of course. There are other things. I can't think of them right now, but there are other things in the family planning and the broader health universe. But just in closing, I'd like to colleagues from UNFPA have played a big part in the process so far and on the line today, and I understand that unfortunately Jagdish couldn't be with us, but Gifty, I think you might be on the line, and I just invite you to say a few words from UNFPA's perspective as we move to the conclusion of this webinar.
Hi, Martin. Can you hear me?
Hi, Gifty. Great to hear your voice. Thank you for taking a bit of time with us this morning.
No, it's been very, very useful, and I also got a lot of updates, and I want to really thank you for leading this effort on our behalf, and to thank our colleagues in the World Bank for the very clear presentations. I also truly appreciated the enthusiasm from our countries in really seeking how to position family planning in all this. And there was this question that I found very interesting regarding how our colleague question unlock the funds. And I think that is how going forward. We said them is focal point of the good for this. I think it's very critical that we ensure planning advocates and leaders at the these things are taking, applications are going so that we can benefit from whatever investment cases we made for family planning. And I just want to conclude by repeating what Monica said about the fact that this is really opportune and it's very good for us within the whole framework of integration to ensure that the needs of girls, in particular the contraceptive needs of girls within the adolescent framework is addressed. And I just want to thank you really for doing this, for convening this. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks very much indeed. Indeed, Gifty, and before I move to thank everyone who's involved, let me please repeat that the questions that are still out there and hanging, we will get them answered, and as I say, we'll get the Uganda update around, and if any other updates from other countries come in, we'll make sure those are circulated too. And just to repeat, we really do want to know how we can support you as you move through the coming months, and so those technical assistance requests, many of which we've already spoken about country by country, we'd like to hear them. As you know, the FP2020 Secretariat has an increasingly country-focused strategy with team members who will have the time to talk with you in detail about many of the opportunities that present themselves in country, and so please reach out to us, including your ideas for how, as Rama and Josephine and others have set out, how we can ensure that we properly and fully engage civil society organizations and that sector as a whole. And we just appreciate your further insights into the process as we move through this crucial phase, particularly for the second wave countries. There will be a Francophone webinar in follow-up to this in the coming few weeks that we'll obviously be in touch with colleagues in DRC and Senegal about. So I'd like to thank very much everyone for participating, particularly to Rama and to Michele from the World Bank, and also to colleagues in the World Bank in the countries. And it was great to hear from Jake and Dinesh on the line during the course of our discussion. I'd like to also thank Ellen Starbird and her team at USAID for their great engagement through this process and for their clear articulation of the reasons why family planning is a development best buy, is a good investment. To you and FPA, thanks Gifty for your words, and to Jagdish and the team for their full engagement and ensuring that this is a major priority for all focal points, both at head office and in country. And probably, most of all, thank you very much to colleagues on the line from not only the 12 GFF countries, but those who seek to understand this more broadly. We really have valued your participation and your questions. It's been great, and we do want to continue to have these and to convene these as FP2020 over the course of the next few months and years. And lastly, but by no means least, to my colleagues within the FP2020 Secretariat, thanks very much to Monica for her excellent call to action, and to the team here, most notably to Rati and to Jessica, the rest of my colleagues at the Secretariat, for making this webinar possible and for making it a great success. So much of a success that we have over 50 people on the line, and we've run 20 minutes over without anybody complaining. So again, sincere thanks, and we wish you a very good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and we will be in touch and follow up, of course. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. And thank you so much, Martin, and to you and your colleagues. It was an excellent webinar, and we look forward